nobody becomes irresistible by trying to be irresistible. That is the thing most men never figure out. They study what to say. They work on how they walk into a room. They read about body language and conversation techniques and the psychology of attraction. And they wonder why, after all of that, the specific quality they are trying to create still does not seem to be there. Why the women they are most drawn to seem to drift toward men who appear to be doing none of the things the advice says to do. Those men are not doing nothing. They are just doing something that cannot be faked and cannot be performed. Something that has to be built from the inside rather than applied from the outside like a coat of paint. What they have is not a technique. It is a way of living. A specific set of habits that produce, as a natural byproduct, the kind of presence that other people, including women, find genuinely difficult to resist. Not because these habits were developed for that purpose, but because a man who genuinely lives this way becomes the kind of person who makes everyone around him feel something they cannot quite name. Safe. Seen. Like being in his presence raises the quality of the room. That is what this video is about. 7 habits drawn from Stoic philosophy, but entirely practical in how they live in a real daily life. 7 things you can actually start doing, not to impress anyone, to become someone who does not need to impress anyone, because the quality of who he is speaks clearly enough on its own. If this channel is new to you, subscribe to the Stoic Truth right now. Hit subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and let us get into this. 1. Do what you said you would do. Every time. Here is a simple test. Think about the last 3 things you told someone you would do. Did you do all 3? Did you do them when you said you would? Or did at least one of them get quietly pushed aside, forgotten, or deprioritized because something more convenient showed up? Most men would be uncomfortable with an honest answer to those questions. Not because they are bad people, because the gap between what people say and what they do is one of the most common and most overlooked features of ordinary human behavior. And women notice that gap with a precision that should never be underestimated. Integrity is not a grand virtue reserved for politicians and philosophers. It is the daily, unglamorous, completely undramatic practice of doing what you said you would do, following up when you said you would follow up, showing up when you said you would show up, finishing what you started. The philosopher Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote something about this that cuts straight to the point. He wrote, "The ancestor of every action is a thought, but between the thought and the action is the specific quality that either builds trust or destroys it. The question is not whether you have good intentions. Most people have good intentions. The question is whether your actions consistently reflect them. When a woman is deciding whether a man is worth her deepest investment, whether she can genuinely rely on him, she is watching the small things, not the big romantic gestures. Those are easy. She is watching whether he follows up when he says he will, whether he shows up when he committed to showing up, whether the man she is with in private is the same man he presents in public, whether there is a distance between what he says and what he does that she needs to constantly navigate. A man with genuine integrity does not produce that distance. What he says and what he does are the same. Not always perfectly, but consistently. And that consistency, quiet and undramatic as it is, creates something that no amount of charm can create. It creates the specific feeling of safety that makes a woman want to move toward someone rather than maintain a careful distance. Here is the practical reality of building this habit. Start with the small things, not the big declarations, the small ones. When you say you will text someone, text them. When you say you will be somewhere at 7, be there at 7. When you start something, finish it, even when finishing it is no longer exciting, because those small, kept promises are the material that the larger trustworthiness is built from. You cannot be a man of your word in the important moments if you have not practiced being a man of your word in the ordinary ones. And notice what the opposite does over time. A man who consistently says things he does not follow through on does not just create disappointment in the specific instances. He creates a pattern of unreliability that colors every future promise he makes. She begins to hear his commitments with an internal asterisk. Oh, he said he would do that. We will see. And once that asterisk forms, the relationship is operating on a fundamentally different level. Not trust, but management. She is managing expectations rather than resting in confidence. And managing expectations is exhausting in a way that quietly erodes the connection between two people. The man who removes that asterisk, whose word is so consistently kept that she has simply stopped doubting it, creates a fundamentally different experience. She can relax into the relationship. She does not need to guard herself against disappointment. And that relaxation, that specific lowering of the guard, is one of the most intimate things one person can offer another. 2. Control what you display, not what you feel. Let me be very direct about something that a lot of content about emotional control gets wrong. The goal is not to become someone who does not feel things deeply. The goal is to become someone who decides what to do with what they feel, rather than simply being carried along by it. Women are not attracted to men who do not feel. They are attracted to men who feel things and remain grounded anyway. Men who can be moved by something without being swept away by it. Men whose emotional life is clearly real and deep, but whose behavior is not dictated by every fluctuation of that life. Think about the difference between two men in the same difficult situation. Someone says something dismissive or unfair in a social setting. The first man immediately reacts. His face changes, his tone sharpens. He either snaps back or withdraws in a way that broadcasts exactly how much the comment reached him. The second man feels the same sting. But something about his relationship with his own emotional states allows him to feel it without immediately displaying it. He responds from a position slightly above the reaction, rather than from inside it. The first man showed the room where he could be reached. The second man showed the room that he was the one deciding what happened next. The novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote something about the relationship between feeling deeply and maintaining composure that I think is the most honest description of what genuine emotional strength actually looks like. He wrote, "To love something means to see it as God intended it." He meant that genuine depth of feeling, real emotional richness, is not the same as emotional reactivity. The man who loves most deeply is not necessarily the man who shows it most immediately. He is the man whose feeling is so real and so grounded that it does not need to be proven by a display. In practice, this means developing the specific habit of the pause. When something pushes on you, before you respond, before your face gives everything away, Before you speak from the heat of the moment, you pause. Not a long pause, a breath, a moment of returning to yourself. And from that moment, you choose your response rather than executing your reaction. That pause is what women feel in a man who has this habit. They feel the steadiness of someone who is fully present, but not at the mercy of every incoming signal. And that steadiness, experienced over time, creates the specific kind of trust that makes a woman feel genuinely safe in the emotional weather of a relationship. 3. Make her feel understood. Before you make her feel impressed. Here is the most common mistake men make in the early stages of connection with a woman they are genuinely interested in. They try to be impressive. They talk about what they have done, what they are building, what they know, what they are capable of. They audition, and the more interested they are in her, the more they audition. And she feels it. She feels the performance of it. She feels that the conversation is more about him being received well than about her being genuinely known. And something in her, something very honest, begins to create distance. The habit that produces genuine connection is the opposite of this. It is the specific discipline of being more interested in understanding another person than in being understood by them. Of asking real questions and listening to the answers, not for the opportunity to respond, but to actually know something true about who she is. The philosopher Simone Weil wrote one of the most important things ever written about this kind of attention. She wrote, "Attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity." Think about that in the context of every conversation you have had with a woman you are trying to impress. How much of your attention in those conversations was genuinely on her, on what she was actually saying, actually feeling, actually trying to communicate? Or was most of it on how you were coming across, on what you were going to say next, on managing the impression you were making? Real empathy is not a feeling. It is a practice. It is the deliberate redirection of your attention away from yourself and toward the actual experience of the person in front of you. When she is telling you about something difficult, you are not looking for the moment to offer a solution or share a related story. You are staying with her in what she is describing, feeling the weight of it, letting her know, through your attention and your responses, that what she is saying is genuinely landing somewhere in you. When she experiences that from a man, it is so rare that she remembers it, not because it is a trick, because it is the specific quality of presence that makes another human being feel genuinely seen. And feeling genuinely seen is one of the deepest needs available to human experience. The man who provides that, not as a technique but as a genuine practice, does not have to work to be compelling. He becomes the kind of person she keeps wanting to return to. The practical version of this is straightforward. In your next important conversation with a woman, set yourself one specific challenge. Ask more questions than you make statements. When she answers, do not immediately think about how to respond. Actually sit with what she said for a moment. Then respond to what she actually meant, not just to the words she used. Watch what happens to the quality of the conversation. There is also something worth naming about what genuine empathy does to the man who practices it. It does not just change how she experiences him. It changes how he experiences the world. The man who has developed the habit of genuinely trying to understand other people's experience, who regularly steps outside his own perspective to inhabit someone else's, has access to a quality of insight and understanding that the man who never does is simply not capable of. He sees more. He understands more. He makes better decisions because he is working with a more complete picture of reality. And that depth of understanding, applied to the relationship, means he is able to navigate its complexity with a grace that men who have never practiced empathy simply cannot access. She does not need a man who agrees with everything she feels. She needs a man who takes the time to genuinely understand what she feels before responding to it. That understanding, offered consistently and without agenda, is one of the most powerful things you can give anyone, and it costs nothing except the specific discipline of redirecting your attention from yourself to someone else. Subscribe to the Stoic Truth right now if you are not already here. This is exactly the kind of work we do every week together. 4. Be fully here, not somewhere else in your head. Ask yourself honestly how often you are actually present in the conversations you have, not physically present, actually present, with your full attention on what is happening in the specific moment, rather than divided between the moment and the next 10 things on your mental list, the response you are constructing, the impression you are monitoring, the thing that happened earlier that you are still processing. Most people are somewhere between 30 and 50% present in their daily interactions. The rest of their attention is elsewhere, and the people they interact with feel that absence even when they cannot name it. There is a quality to an interaction with someone whose full attention is genuinely with you that is immediately distinguishable from an interaction with someone whose attention is divided. One feels like a conversation, the other feels like a transaction. The Senegalese writer Birago Diop wrote something about presence and the nature of genuine contact between people that has always struck me as describing the exact feeling we are talking about. He wrote, "Those who are dead are never gone. They are in the shadows. The living are not always living." What he was pointing at was the specific quality of a person who is genuinely alive in the moment rather than going through its motions. And that quality, that specific aliveness, is felt immediately by everyone who encounters it. For a woman on a date or in a relationship with a man who has this quality, the experience is distinctive. She is not competing for his attention with his phone or his thoughts or his self-monitoring. He is actually there, actually listening, actually responding to what she said rather than to what he was already preparing to say while she was still speaking. And that full presence communicates something that no words can communicate as effectively. It says, "You are worth my complete attention," not the divided version, the real thing. In practice, this means making very specific decisions about where your attention goes. When you are with her, your phone is not a participant in the conversation. When she is speaking, you are listening rather than constructing your response. When something from earlier in the day is trying to claim your mental bandwidth, you notice it and return your attention to where you actually are. These are simple decisions. They are not easy. They require the specific discipline of repeatedly choosing the present moment over the mental habit of being somewhere else. But the return on that discipline in the quality of connection it produces is extraordinary. 5. How you handle the hard moments tells her everything. Everyone has a version of themselves that shows up when things are going well. Pleasant, easy to be around, the kind of person that good circumstances produce in almost anyone. What separates a genuinely attractive man from one who simply has good surface qualities is what shows up when things are not going well. When the plan falls apart, when he gets embarrassing news in front of other people, when the thing he was counting on does not happen, when she is in a bad mood and it is not about anything he did and the space needs to be held without either fixing it or making it about himself. These are the moments that reveal character in a way that comfortable circumstances simply never can. And women, consciously or not, are watching these moments. Resilience is not the ability to pretend nothing is wrong. It is the ability to acknowledge reality clearly and continue moving forward with the same groundedness that was present before the difficulty arrived. The specific composure that says, I see what happened, I feel what this is, and I have not been destabilized by it. The writer Albert Camus described this quality with the precision of someone who had genuinely lived it. He wrote, "In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. That invincible summer is not a mood, it is a foundation, something underneath the weather of circumstances that remains consistent regardless of what those circumstances are doing. The man who has built that foundation does not become a different person when things get hard. He becomes more clearly himself. What this looks like practically is this. When something goes wrong in a shared situation, you do not perform composure. You also do not spiral into anxiety or frustration that she has to manage around. You stay with yourself. You acknowledge the difficulty clearly. You look for what can actually be done rather than fixating on what went wrong. And you do this not because you are suppressing your feelings about it, but because you have developed enough of a relationship with difficulty that it does not automatically overwhelm your capacity to function. This quality in a man is genuinely rare. Most men are either performing toughness, pretending nothing is bothering them while clearly bothered, or they are leaking their disturbance into the room in ways that make everyone around them feel responsible for managing it. The man who can be actually bothered by something and remain functional and grounded is a different proposition entirely. He is the man she feels she could weather something real with. And that is one of the most attractive assessments a woman can make of a man. 6. Keep growing. When you have every reason not to. Here is the honest truth about personal growth that most content about it conveniently skips. Growth is easy when things are going well, when you are motivated, when results are visible, when the people around you are supportive and circumstances are cooperating. In those conditions, almost anyone can show up, do the work, and feel good about the direction they are moving. The real growth happens in the difficult version of the story, when motivation has completely evaporated and the only reason to keep going is that you decided you would. When progress is invisible and the old patterns are calling loudly. When the easy thing and the right thing are pulling in completely opposite directions and nobody is watching which one you choose. The philosopher William James wrote something about the relationship between habit and character that is one of the most practical observations about human development available. He wrote, "The hell to be endured hereafter, of which theology tells, is no worse than the hell we make for ourselves in this world, by habitually fashioning our characters in the wrong way." What he meant was that character is not discovered, it is built deliberately. Through the specific daily choices about how we act when acting correctly is difficult. And the man who keeps building his character, who keeps developing his skills and his self-understanding, who keeps pushing toward a better version of himself when comfortable stagnation would be so much easier, that man has an energy about him that is immediately distinct from the one who stopped growing. Women feel the difference between a man who is building something and a man who has settled, not necessarily in the external circumstances of his life, in the quality of his attention, in the specific aliveness of someone who is genuinely engaged with where he is going. A man who is actively growing has things to talk about that are real and current and alive to him. He is encountering new ideas, developing new capabilities, refining his understanding of himself and the world. And that ongoing engagement with life produces a quality of conversation and presence that settled stagnation simply cannot. In practice, this does not require dramatic reinvention. It means picking something you want to develop and actually developing it. Reading not to have read, but to have understood something you did not understand before. Building a skill not for its impressiveness, but for the genuine satisfaction of increasing your own capability. Pursuing something that challenges you, rather than something that confirms what you already know. The specific thing matters less than the genuine engagement, because the genuine engagement is what shows, not the credential, the actual quality of someone who is moving. There is also something worth saying about what stagnation communicates. A man who has stopped growing, who is the same person with the same opinions and the same capabilities he had 3 years ago, communicates something specific to the women around him. Not that he is comfortable in himself, that he has settled, that he has made his peace with whatever version of himself currently exists and sees no particular reason to push past it. And while that might not be a deal breaker in every case, it does produce a specific ceiling on the depth of connection available, because depth in a relationship requires depth in the people in it, and depth in people requires the ongoing willingness to go somewhere new. The man who is genuinely engaged in his own development, who is pushing himself in some direction that matters to him, who regularly encounters the specific discomfort of trying to do something he has not yet mastered, that man has an energy that cannot be manufactured. It is the energy of someone who is alive to his own possibilities, and that aliveness, experienced in close proximity, is one of the most compelling qualities available. 7. Be the same man. Whether she can see you or not, everything in this video comes down to this final habit, because without this one, the previous 6 are just performance techniques, just a more sophisticated way of managing impression. And what we are building here is not impression management, it is actual character. Authenticity is the word that gets used most often for this quality. But authenticity has been used so many times in so many different contexts that it has lost most of its weight. So let me describe what I actually mean in more specific terms. The man who has this habit is the same person in private as he is in public. His values do not shift depending on who is in the room. His behavior in the moments when nobody is watching is consistent with his behavior in the moments when everyone is. The version of him that she experiences on a good day when he is well rested and things are going well is recognizably related to the version of him that shows up on a bad day when he is tired and things are not going well. There is a consistency to him that she can orient herself around. A reliability that does not depend on the right circumstances to appear. The writer Leo Tolstoy made an observation about this quality that I think is among the most honest ever recorded. He wrote, "Everyone thinks of changing the world, but nobody thinks of changing himself." What he was pointing to is the specific gap that exists in most people between the version of themselves they present to the world and the one they are actually building in private, between the performance and the reality, between the man who knows what to say and the man who actually lives that way. Authenticity in the Stoic sense is not about being comfortable expressing your feelings or being willing to be vulnerable. It is about alignment, the alignment between what you value and how you actually live, between who you say you are and who you are in the moments when being anyone else would be easier, between the man you aspire to be and the man you are building in the unremarkable daily choices that nobody will ever applaud. Women who have been around for any length of time have developed very reliable detection for the gap between performance and reality. They have had enough experience with men who could say the right things to know that the saying and the living are completely different capabilities. What they are looking for, consciously or not, is the man whose saying and living are genuinely the same, whose words are not ahead of his actual character but emerging from it, whose consistency comes not from discipline in the performance but from the actual quality of the person performing. Building that kind of authenticity is the work of years, not because it is impossible, but because it requires the same thing everything real requires: repetition in private. The continued choosing of the right thing in the moments when nobody is watching. The honest daily reckoning with the gap between who you are and who you intend to be. And the quiet, unglamorous, completely unannounced work of closing that gap. One choice at a time. Here is the thing about all 7 of these habits that I want you to carry with you beyond this video. None of them are about women specifically. None of them are techniques designed to produce attraction as their output. They are habits that produce a genuinely good man as their output. A man with integrity, with emotional depth that he can actually manage, with the capacity for real attention and real empathy, with the groundedness to remain himself when circumstances press against him, with the ongoing commitment to becoming more capable and more aware, with the consistency to be the same person in private that he is in public. That man, built honestly, over time through the practice of these habits, does not need to try to be attractive. Attraction is a natural byproduct of who he is, because the specific qualities that produce genuine, enduring, deep attraction in women are the same qualities that produce a genuinely excellent human being. They are not separate projects. They are the same one. The Stoics understood this clearly. They did not build a philosophy of self-mastery to become better at dating. They built it because they understood that the quality of your inner life determines the quality of everything that comes from it. Your relationships, your work, your impact, your ability to be present in the only life you actually have. Start with one of these 7, the one that is furthest from your current reality, not the easiest one, the one that, if you were genuinely living it, would change the most about how you move through the world. Start there. Practice it in private, without announcement, without waiting for results, and let the results appear in their own time, because they will. They always do when the building is genuine. If this video reached something real in you today, hit the like button right now and share it with someone who is ready to stop working on his impression and start working on himself. Subscribe to the Stoic Truth if you are not already here. Every week we come back and do this kind of honest, practical work together. The next video is already on your screen. The most irresistible version of you is not the most impressive version. It is the most genuinely built one. Go build it.